Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast, the podcast that is passing wisdom to the next generation of athletes, coaches, and parents to transform leaders on and off the court. And in today's episode, we get the opportunity to interview Coach Mindy Lee. Coach Mindy Lee is a mindset coach and nutrition coach for women. And in our episode today, we talk a lot about going against the standards of, what society says we should do with our health, what we should look like, and how to properly fuel ourselves, not only as athletes, but also as parents as well. So without further ado, let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the Bridging Impact Podcast. Mindy, I'm thrilled to have you on, and you are our first gymnast that we are having on the show. The previous week, a couple weeks ago, was a first volleyball player. So it's great to have, people coming on from different sports and sharing different perspectives. So welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. That's fun. I didn't realize I was your first gymnast. Yay.
It's exciting. It's great. Our goal is to get all the sports.
I love it.
I'm diving right into it. What kind of impact did becoming a collegiate gymnast have on you to this day?
Yeah, I think I continue to learn regularly the impact it had. Starting at, so young. I started when I was about 8. After Mary Lou Retton won the gold medal in the 84 Olympics. So that'll kind of tell you my age. I was determined to compete I wanted to be, my real name is Mindy Lee. And so I'm like, I'm going to be the next Mindy Lee, the next Mary Lou. Going from there and having that determination and persistence with just seeing her do so well and wanting that same type of success. What it has shown me as an adult and as a mom and now as a fitness and health and mindset coach is just exactly that, the determination when you want something and when you work hard for it, that determination. But the beautiful part of even my story going into college is this cultivation of a sweet group of women who are still my teammates today and still people I go to who cheer me on and support me. So the impact, I guess, is that I've learned to work hard, and when I want something, go hard for it. Doesn't always pan out that way how I want it to, but I know how to work hard and go after something. And the sweetness, really, of these relationships that I have built for now, 25 plus years that continue to be a really rock in my life.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you talked about the relationships that you still have that are pivotal to, who you are today. And I'd love to kind of dive into, now as a coach and starting your own business, you talked about, the determination and the sheer will it takes. And before we kind of dive into where you are now, I know that, that sheer will and determination helped you want to pursue becoming on the national team, and really like elevating that performance as an athlete. So can you dive into some more detail and some stories on what that was like?
Yeah, let's see, I guess it was about even getting recruited I went to Seattle Pacific University, a Division II school. And one of the real attractive parts to that the gymnastics team, was that they had won a national championship before, not too many years prior to me arriving there. It was a small school, and I knew that I would have the opportunity to compete. There were some other D1 schools that I was looking at and were happy to have me, but I was going to, need to bench for a year, and there was no promise of competition. And I knew my body as a gymnast, you're wearing and tearing it down, that I needed to continue. If I wanted to compete, I didn't need a year off. I couldn't do 5 more years of gymnastics. And so that was really attractive to me, was that this program has the potential to win another national championship. And that was mixed with another, more groups of women who were recruited and became part of this team who had this vision too, and who specifically even the 2 other gals who came in with me as freshmen, and we're still super great friends. And so in our senior class, we led this team with a drive and motivation of what we were capable of doing and what we wanted. And um, I think it was like no other experience. It's even hard to talk about and put into words because it really was a storybook ending. It was a storybook experience. How I grew as a person, as an athlete, and grew stronger. But and it took the team. It took every single one of us to have skin in the game and to have that same mindset that we were what we were capable of. Um, Years prior to that, there was some, I would call them kind of vampires, people who sucked the goodness out of our team. And when they finally moved to different, either graduated or ended up quitting the team, it really, our team came alive because we all, again, that cultivation, that team effort. I can't emphasize enough of what that's like when you know you have someone so like-minded and wanting the same thing as you want and working just as hard and willing to be pushed hard and willing to be called to more. That same goal in mind is just it's really magical and incredibly rare, I believe.
Yeah, it is magical and also rare at the same time because there's, you can be an energy giver, you can be neutral on energy, or you can, be like you're talking about an energy vampire and take energy away from the team. And I feel like even if you have one person on the team that's an energy vampire, it can kind of, take away from those storybook endings, that those magical moments just because of one person. Like it really, honestly, like in team sports, right? It really depends on every single person kind of rowing in the same direction. And as you began rowing into your kind of your professional career after athletics, what was that? What did you take? What experiences did you take? You talked about the sheer will, determination, connections with you as you wanted to continue to impact and give back maybe some of that experience that you had as a collegiate gymnast.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. I continued right after, after college, I've continued to stay active in, whether it's lifting weights or doing HIIT classes or learning more about nutrition. So it's been in me. But getting married, becoming a mom, it was like those were the things that took precedence. And even in my mothering, I was determined for my family to live and be a certain way. I had that same drive of what I wanted for our family to look like. And some of
Mm,
that is intentional and just fine. And there's some of it that you have absolutely no control over, right?
right.
Um,
Right.
so I um, I think the determination of gosh, this is a hard. It's hard to answer because I've I've always had that determination and will, even as a mom when I wasn't, working on my business. Um, yeah, I think I'm kind of stumbling for an answer here.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, and you could talk about it. Doesn't just have to be, professional. It could be also, about being a mom and that sheer will and determination. There's no, right answer for this.
Yeah. Well, I think I had that will and determination to um, my okay, the gym for me and going to the gym was a place that I was safe and I had success and I was encouraged. And I don't know that I would have been as successful had I not had such a place to land. And I say that because my home life was not a place where I wanted to stay and to be around often. And so I had an outlet and it tended to some issues and wounds and processing of my story. And so if I were to say what was my what really was my springboard, I'll use a gymnastics term there, to continue with that determination when it came to being a mother was like, I want my kids to not have to leave my home to feel encouraged, safe, and successful. So how do I make that happen in my house? And I'd say that was probably my sheer determination as a mom. And I think that it is a home that's built on that. I think we'll know, right, when years to come, when they come back,
Right.
they'll be telling us what it really was. But I do know the gym was a safe place for me, and it led me to great success. So was my vim and vigor and my push and drive because it was tending to like the frustrations I was having at home, or was it because I was determined to become something other? Maybe a little bit of both. Um,
Right.
yeah.
No, that's beautiful, and I love that you're talking about how the gym was like a safe and successful place for you. And I'd love to kind of touch on the word safe. And now for you as a coach, and you whether you're working in the gym or just talking about health and fitness, I think a lot of times, right, we talked about right before we came on the podcast about kind of the beauty standards that are set in our culture, and that sometimes people don't feel safe in the gym or feel safe
Mm,
within their own bodies. And I would love to kind of talk a little bit more about the work that you do with helping people, kind of feel more safe within their own bodies and in the gym and athletically.
yeah. I love that. I love that phrase, safe within your own body. That is a goal that I would have for the clients that I work with. I work with mostly women, although I've worked with some men also. And I've worked with some athletes too. Um, Really just, well, one of my goals is for them to understand how to fuel their body. And so when you learn how to fuel your body for the activity that you're either you're doing, or the race that you're running, or even your day-to-day motherhood, um, it's a game changer. I had a time in my life when it was like, I will just have some coffee in the morning. Okay, I'll have a quick piece of toast. I'll have another cup of coffee. Oh, the next thing I know, it's dinner. I'll eat some of the kids' leftover mac and cheese. Oh, here's a chicken nugget.
Right.
And I didn't understand why I was, bonking every afternoon at 3 o'clock and then just grabbing another Americano, um, and
Right.
and I knew that it had to do with my fueling, until I got really serious about how to fuel my body so that I could actually be performing, even as I put the performing in quotes, as a mom, not necessarily as an athlete. I It was a game changer as far as I can really offer my best. I can love better. I can be in relationship better. I can communicate better when I'm taking care of my body. And in doing that and taking care of myself, I ended up feeling more confident and more safe in my body, like you're saying. And because I was feeding it and fueling it to the best way that I knew how, and not, I think in there's some self sabotage that goes on when people don't care for themselves. I do know that occurs. And so that's a real big part of working with clients is hearing their goals and really being curious on why they haven't achieved them yet. And 90% of that is because it's the mental game and what goes on in their head about their beliefs of themselves, or and some of it is not knowing how to, but a large chunk of it is just not believing that they can. And I help reframe that, and I help encourage them to believe that they absolutely can, with no question.
That's awesome. And can we like unpack that a little bit more? I'd love to, kind of expand on, some of the self sabotage that you see kind of as a pattern, and some of the, consistent thoughts that find yourself, repeating with different people that you work with.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like your face is frozen on my end. Are you still hearing me? Everything okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Everything's all
Okay,
good.
good.
Yeah.
There is, um, there are many themes that come up, and well, like I mentioned earlier, just the belief that they can't. Um, so okay. So for example, one of the questions I ask is, "What have you done in the past that's been successful?" And people are like, "Oh, I did keto, or I did paleo, or I did no carbs," and
Right.
they list all the things, right? And they're, "Oh, this one worked really, really good, and I really liked this one." And and I gently say, but I'll be more abrupt here, is, well, then why are we here? If those worked really good, why are we meeting?
Right.
And it usually comes down to, well, because it wasn't sustainable, or I just gave up because it was, too restricted. It wasn't sustainable. It's really the bottom line. It was not sustainable. And so I want to rework that with people and show them what is sustainable and what is possible, which means I am not a restriction, and I'm not over. You might have heard of the slogan, health at every size. And I think there's two extremes there, where we are reckless and don't care, or where we're restricted and miserable. And there's got to be somewhere in the middle that we can meet, and you can fuel and feel good about what you ate, and not feel shame about what you ate, and be purposeful in what you eat, and be intentional on the choices that you're making. And then find that health for the size that you are, or the size that you want to be. Health can be found there. So digging through that. But a lot of people don't. So back to your question of the self-sabotage that I see shows up the most often, is really the definitions of health, right? Well, someone has a picture of what health looks like in their mind, and they want to get there. And it might be very possible, but we are all created so uniquely and differently that the calories or the meal plan suggestions that I give for someone like me is going to be completely different for someone who's, 5'2", and maybe even just like a little bit and stronger in muscle. Like, we are so different. Or I wouldn't give you the same meal plan that I would give my husband, right? And so when we start following these programs that are suited for 30 days, lose 30 pounds in 30 days, it misses the person. And therefore, but people see that as health. Oh, I want to look like that must be healthy. And then they use that definition to determine their program. And that's when it gets backwards. And that's when self-sabotage comes, because you're believing that you can achieve this, but what you're wanting to achieve is actually not legitimate for you, or what you really want. And what people really want in health is to feel good, and to have energy, and to sleep good. And the byproduct is how your body ends up looking. But people usually come to me and say, I want to look like this, right? So there's a lot of perfectionism in there. So it's like, oh, I missed this. I didn't,
Right.
just perfectionism is huge, where I really try to help them understand, like, let's be consistent. Let's go the long haul with this. Okay, so you ate, too much at breakfast. Does that mean you're not going to try to, get back and eat some healthier things today? I used to do the same thing. Like, I would have too big of a breakfast. I'd feel really full and crummy about myself. So I'm like, oh, I'll just drink coffee the rest of the day so that I feel better. I'm not as bloated, and I'll be lighter by the end of the day. And that is the self-sabotage, because your body, it's like the worst thing you could do for your body. Your body wants fuel. So I don't know, say you have a huge breakfast and you feel kind of crummy. Okay, well, let's just make some better decisions the rest of the day, but that's over with and done. Let's move forward, and not, critique and be hard on yourself for the whole rest of your day. So a lot of unkindness is going on in our minds, and I call them they're called annoying negative thoughts. I call them your ants. What are your annoying negative thoughts that continue to come up? Mm-hmm. And when you're aware of those thoughts, then you can stop them and go, wait a minute, I can eat whatever I want today, because I don't need to be ruled by what I had last night for dinner. I can start fresh and begin my day, and start getting back on track, or consistent. So, I mean, self-sabotage we could talk for hours on that, on where it shows up. A lot of it, in short, perfectionism, and a belief that they are incapable, and that one mess up is going to blow their whole entire their goal, and that's just not true.
That's all great information. So what are some general rules of thumb? You've talked a lot about fueling the body, and I know that we talked about body sizes all being different. All bodies need, kind of different, lifestyle, like nutrition styles, but like what are some general rules of thumb for the, the parents and the coaches that are listening to this podcast that just want to, feel better on their day to day, and the parents and coaches that want to pass on some good wisdom to athletes, who want to continue to perform at higher levels?
Yeah, I feel like we could have a whole like session on this, but there's so much. But like to your point of just little rule of thumb, you mentioned earlier, like what's good food, what would be good food, and that just even that language is being aware of let's be neutral with food, right? And let's look at it as fuel. And so when I have options before me, what is good, better, and best? I just spoke with the gal who's like, well, Mindy, I love my Cheetos. Like, I don't want to give up my Cheetos. And she's like, they make me so happy. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want you to give up your Cheetos either. I also don't want you to eat the whole bag in one setting. Right. And so a lot of this is experimenting. So as an athlete, of course, we could get scientific and say like, well, this many carbs if you're going to work out for this long, and then be sure to refuel with some protein, and depending on what your goals are, I'd be happy to dig into that. But just overall, it's, why don't you try something out? I don't know. Try eating a bag of Cheetos before your basketball practice and see how you feel. Right. And not because I'm trying to prove a point, but there's some athletes who say, I don't actually like to eat it all before my practice. And I'm always like, oh my gosh, you need something, but it just works for them. Other athletes who let's just try eating something in between. Like when you have your break, what if we refueled with a granola bar and just had, consistent fuel going in? So it can vary, but overall, the idea that there's a good, better, best choice that you can make when eating. And if you can become intentional about that and be aware of how it makes you feel, a lot of the people I work with, it's experimental. It's just, people who don't like to eat morning breakfast and do intermittent fasting. Great. Let's stick with that. See how it works for you. So there's some people who would be more specific to what exactly you need, and I can go there. But the overarching is do some experimenting, see what does work, and give it a shot and see what happens.
Yeah, so much of it is around like how you feel. And, with that, I kind of want to pivot and talk a little bit more specifically towards, female athletes, and especially for us coaches and parents that are listening and being able to support female athletes. Like we touched on a little bit before about the cultural standards, right? That is just not realistic sometimes. And they still want, like, everyone wants to compete at the highest level and perform. And I feel like there's, I'm not a woman, but I feel like there's an extra pressure, extra standard for women to, have a certain diet, certain nutrition style. So what kind of thoughts would you have around that for female athletes?
Yeah, well, I am in love with all of the information and studies and pursuit of female athletes and their performance, even, integrating their cycle involved with what they're training and what they should be doing to best for their body. And Dr. Stacy Sims, is just phenomenal when it comes to how women, we don't need to train like men, right? We don't need to eat like men. So just the conversations she's brought onto her own podcast and to her books of what is so important as a female and working specifically with your body on what is going to fuel you to this highest performance. 90% of every person that I have worked with, and men included, don't eat enough. When we take a calorie intake, the men that I've worked with are higher CEO, busy people, right? And so they're just grabbing what they can. So the women are like, well, the less I eat, the smaller I'll be, which is what the world wants us to be, is small, right? And thin and petite. And I love just this idea of like, let's reframe that and let's fuel ourselves for strength and to get strong, and to not be so infatuated with this tininess that the world honors and values and sees as beautiful. Like, let's just redefine what beauty looks like, you know? I'm trying to come back to your question, but the toxic like health and toxic body messages that women get in their heads and then become standards and become the definition of how they should look is exactly that. It's toxic. And if we can be more intentional on redefining what that is to look like, even some of these athletes or this, marathon runner was worried about, the amount of food that I was encouraging her to eat, was worried about getting bulky, that with doing some, weight training on the off season. It's like, I don't want to get bulky. And it's like, well, oh my gosh, it's actually hard for us to gain muscle. I promise you in this like 6 months, you won't get bulky. Or I ate a lot and I feel like heavy in my stomach. I really want to feel thinner. And it's so convoluted because it's just about what we see on TV or what is just valued in this toxic culture. When really, how about you like have a full gut because you just fueled yourself and you're going to, go work out right now. And that fuel is going to give you the energy to lift weights, stronger than you ever have and heavier than you ever have. So it's a narrative, and it's a lot of effort because the world is so stinking loud with what we as women are supposed to look like. And I hate it.
Yeah, I definitely, it's not realistic standards, right? And I think you bring up a lot of interesting points. And so for, the parents and the coaches that are listening that just want to be supportive. And, I think, kind of from what I hear, it's a lot of like, asking questions, reminding them that these are not, realistic standards. But I'd love for you to kind of like, maybe for specific examples, like for me, like if I'm working with, a female athlete, like what is my best way of approaching if I wanted to talk about nutrition in a way that, actually talks about fueling the body versus like fitting the standard?
I think that's it. I think it's the words you choose to use, like fueling your body, because, today, ladies, we're prepping them. Tomorrow, we're going to be doing this workout. And so let's talk about how you're going to come prepared to that workout mentally and physically. So when you work out at 2, which means you should probably eat your lunch at 1. So because those, and you even learning like those carbs that you're going to use are going to give you the energy, and I need you to be on point or for the game. And then, offering some sort of mid snack, that's like healthy and energizing in the middle of practice. So it can be a touchy subject, especially I'm guessing as a male coach. When I would say that's when you need, I think you're capable. I think you could learn this stuff. But it's the language that you use, and it's helping them reframe. You're coming to work with me, and this is how I see strength. This is how I see beauty. This is how I see performance. And it's not because you're a size 2. It's because you gave your effort and you showed up and you were available to your teammates. And the reason you were that way is because you probably fueled and took care of yourself. And so let's talk about what we can do to even fuel and take care of yourself more so that you can show up for your teammates more, so that you can come and work and have the most energy to give to this, this weekend's games. And it's like it's reverse engineering. What do you want from that practice, from that game? And then let's work backwards. How do we get there? Mentally, physically, fueling, all of it.
Yeah, I love the reverse engineering part and using, your words in a way of, supportive and just changing that language. What are some old, ways of talking, speaking, that we just need to avoid at all costs, and I know we've touched on it a little bit, but just to be super specific for the, those that are listening, like what should we just drop from our vocabulary?
Oh, I love that. Like, what do we not do is better than what do we do? There was a season when as gymnasts, we were weighed in to check our weight. And that fluctuates. And for a female, that can fluctuate like on a monthly basis, 5 pounds. Right. And so it depends where I'm at in my cycle. It depends if I worked out the night before. It depends if I've had a bowel movement. There's so much that goes in when you step on that scale. What you're weighing your entire body, your bones, your water, your cells, your brain. It's not just weighing fat. And so if you want, if the goal or the coach is stuck in that, I don't want fat athletes. There's different ways to go about how to figure that out. If your athlete needs to lose some fat. So I would not weigh in an athlete. If I weighed an athlete in, it would be maybe, it would be with that story and that narrative around it. Like, we are taking this as a data point, but I'm also going to take in your sleep. How did you sleep? And I want to know how your stress level is. And I want these data points. It's like literally a scientist mentality. Let's take in all the variables, all the things going on in your life. And the scale is one of all of those. Because you can't lose fat when you're stressed out. You can't lose fat when you're not getting good sleep, and then when you're not getting good sleep and when you're not, and when you're stressed out, you're not performing well. So this what's going on with the athlete holistically, and a check-in of stress level and sleep and how are classes and what's on your mind. What are your annoying negative thoughts that are coming into your, how can I help you rebuke them and reframe them, and interrogate those thoughts? I worked with a coach, and as I was talking to him about the annoying negative thoughts that these girls said to me, he said, well, I don't know those. They're not telling me those things. And it's like, well, they're not going to just come up and tell you. It needs to be this environment where this is the language that we use. And I want to hear more about what's going on inside of you, because that is making the difference on how you're actually performing. I think using the messages of strength, like, oh, you're getting stronger. I can see your strength. And even in the weight room, right? When you see the weights increase, the weights go up, your muscles building, and then the scale is going to go up because muscle weighs a heck of a lot, So that doesn't, the scale again can't be used for that. So a lot of showing where there's been improvement through data points, biofeedback, rather than your, the scale, or, and really building a culture where we want strength and we want endurance, and we don't need to look like anything, but I want you to be in the best shape of your life, and I want to help you get there. And the best shape of your life looks like and feels like this. And again, it can't be this collective overall umbrella over your whole team, because your teammate, a quarterback is shaped a lot different than a linebacker, right? But they are both healthy and strong in the way in which they need to perform. And so what is that for each individual person on the team? It takes effort. It takes time. It takes relationship and safety for I'm guessing even too, a girl to speak with a male coach about all of these things.
No, that makes a ton of sense. And I love the focus on like the strength and endurance side. Like, this is our goal. This is our mission. Not like our mission is not to, focus so much on the scale. And when I think of kind of hearing you talk about it, I hear one of the underlying themes is like curiosity, and like thinking about like the scale and the weight is the iceberg tip, but like under it is like, okay, this person actually has put on muscle. Okay, this person is stressed because of, finals. All right, this person is, they worked out last night, they're, there's a ton of different factors that go into it, and not looking at the scale as the end all be all, but just like the focus on, are we getting stronger? Are we improving our endurance? And kind of shifting that focus is something that, will benefit, the athletes, and also just kind of have a goal to continue to reach and strive for, as we feel.
The big, like, non-scale victories is pretty much what I'm after for people, because that is just it's one small data point, but there's a whole, with my clients, I have them fill all those things out, talking about their sleep and their stress and where they are in their cycle, and did they have alcohol? There's just a whole gamut of things that we could talk about that play into the number that shows up on that scale. But what I like to look at is, wow, I bench pressed this a month ago. Now look what I'm bench pressing. That's amazing.
Right.
I'm growing. I'm stronger,
Yeah, no, that's a great way to kind of look at things, and the all the different variables and the things that are within more of our control, right? We can kind of have certain things that can control weight, I guess, but like it's not end all be all. We don't have the exact control, but we can, kind of work on, some of the inputs that we have into our body that affects, some of the how we feel, and just kind of experimenting with it like we're scientists. And as we kind of, wrap up this conversation, I'd love for you to kind of just share, kind of like last, thoughts and advice for, parents and coaches around, feeling their bodies. I know we've touched on quite a bit, but just like, you know, what would you hope that people leave this conversation with?
Oh, yeah. I think there's a lot that I would want everyone to leave with,
Yeah.
but I think
Right.
when you speak about coaches or parents in particular, there's a need for training on how to talk to your child about their
Mm.
body, about fitness, and about their success on the field or off the field, right? I'm around so many parents that are trying to relive their childhood failings through their kids' little league, which is just like, good night, nurse. You settle down, right? And so
Yeah.
there's a coach up in the Pacific Northwest who a volleyball coach, and she requires, in order for to join her team, it's a high school team, for you to become a player on her team, the parents have to go through like a 2-week training on mindset and what language she uses to encourage and impact these girls, because she doesn't need the parents at home balking and yelling and screaming one thing while she's pouring into all the goodness and their value that's coming from just simply being an existing human being, right? And so I think that if anything, it's parents and coaches, there's a lot to be learned in your own soul of what's going on when your players aren't performing how you want them to be performing and how you respond to that. And so if they're not willing to do the inner work or come with this posture of, I'm here to make this young girl a better human, then I don't know why they're coaching. Then there's something off. And I love Dawn Stanley. I love her attack on of building up character, and from South Carolina, University of South Carolina. And I love Lynn Roberts, University of Utah, the pursuit of the whole person. And UCLA, she I'm forgetting her name at the moment, but she has that whole
Very close.
she has that who am I thinking of? Someone else then. I feel like it's her, when she has this whole kind of mantra of handle hard better. It's not just on basketball that I'm going to teach you how to handle hard. You're going to be out in the world and you're going to have to know how to handle hard better. And I think some of the parents and the coaches are lacking that. So you ask Coach Furtado, what do I want people to leave with? I want them to leave with the idea that there's a lot to learn about yourself in putting your child in a sport, and there's a lot to learn about yourself as a coach. Then it is so much more than the sport itself. It's about raising.
Yeah, we're always learning.
Yeah, learning and raising these humans to be better for the world. So, yeah.
That's a perfect way. That's a perfect way to end it. Always learning, always wanting. It's so much bigger than the game, right? We talk about transforming leaders on and off the court, and so that's kind of exactly encapsulating what Bridging Impact is all about. That's why we always bring guests on who share similar missions, and I love the work that you're doing around fueling bodies, especially for women, and changing kind of the standards and some of the norms that we think about, and then all the variabilities that life kind of brings, and it's great. And so where can people find you and connect with you, and potentially reach out and learn more about how they can continue to fuel their bodies more optimally?
Yeah, I can be found on, really probably the easiest spot is on the Instagram. Right now I'm at Coach Mindy Lee is my handle. And that's kind of where I've been sending people, and people have been messaging me there to connect. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Mindy. I know I, kind of got some great perspective points around how I want to coach and approach just fueling the body. So I really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, I love what you're doing. Keep doing it because we need the bridge, just like you're saying. So, and I'd be happy to help anytime if you want to talk more about your own coaching and what that looks like as far as fueling. I'm here for you.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast. We'd love it if you would like, subscribe, leave a comment and a review on whatever platform you're on. It's the best way to help us grow. We appreciate you for doing that. We'll shout you out on social media. I'd also love if you connected with me on social media. Let me know your thoughts. And this is why I do it. I want to share knowledge and wisdom from experienced leaders to people like yourself and myself so we can have this dialogue and move forward, make an impact on the world. So stay tuned, stay subscribed. Cheers.